Welcome to our neurodivergent chat part two. I brain dumped a whole bunch of information. We're going to see how much we can get through today. If anyone has relatable stories or questions, or you want to provide your insight, please take yourself off mute and jump in. But I'm going to share my Google Chrome tab. Okay, so when it comes to neurodivergence, before we get into that, think of the nervous system like a battery. Okay, it's your phone battery. You wake up in the morning, it is fully charged because you plugged it in overnight, or you forgot to and it's already on low battery. So if we have a fully charged battery at the beginning of the day, and then we have a day where there's a couple calls, maybe a couple of like tasks, we have to put out an Instagram thing, but there's minimal screen time, battery drains slowly. Versus when you have your phone and you're watching hours of HD videos and you're running apps in the background, and there's a whole bunch of things where like your phone is hot to the touch. That's kind of like our nervous system compared to a neurotypical nervous system. Okay. So our hardware as a neurodivergent woman is wired differently than neurotypical brains. It's not just the software, it's our actual hardware. The higher sensory processing that we have is due to higher neuron density in the amygdala, which is like the middle inside of your brain fear center that is always scanning for threats. So you'll see here the two images, the one on the left, that is a neurotypical slash allistic brain. And the one on the right is a neurodivergent autistic brain. And you'll see that there's a lot more branchy things on there that are taking in the sensory input and messaging it back and forth. So we literally have different hardware to our cell phones. Okay. And this higher neuron density is essentially in the amygdala is us scanning for threats 24/7. And it never really shuts off unless we are in our safe, predictable space. And it's going to drain our battery a lot quicker. So we have to do things that recharge our battery, aka help us make our system feel more regulated. So there's two different ways that we can do this: sensory seeking or sensory avoiding. So seeking is doing the things, and then the avoiding is just being mindful to lessen the load of our system. One of the things that I notice with neurodivergent women is we love working out and we love moving our body because it is a stim. We are moving, we are contracting, we are getting out of our heads and into our bodies. It's one of the only times where our brain goes, shh. So loving exercise, loving going for walks, jumping on a trampoline, gymnast. If you were a gymnast in the past, that is often really common place where we felt really safe and secure and it was a predictable environment. You showed up and it was like, hey, we're going to do these tasks. But because it was jumping and flipping and spinning and rolling around, that vestibular stimming made us feel really, really good. Stimming in general. So engaging in repetitive movements. I'll get into examples of stims, but I have like fidgety stuff here. I have my muscle measuring tape that I'll play around with. I have a chew ring because chewing for me is one of my really big stims. I have like a fidgety spinner thing, lots of stims on my desk, especially when I am listening. I need to stim in order to listen better. If I try and focus and like make eye contact with you, focus goes out the window. Other things, craving deep pressure. So really, really tight hugs or using weighted blankets, or any sort of compression feels really good on the system. Enjoying loud music. I'm talking AirPods in max volume or sitting in the car, max volume cranked up, loud music. Oftentimes we're listening to the same thing over and over and over again too. Temperature changes. So for me, that is either taking a cold shower or sitting in a hot tub or going into a sauna, or if it's like warm in your house, stepping outside and having a cool breeze, or if it's stepping outside and feeling the sun on your face, those are things that help recharge our battery. Touching specific textures. Also, petting animals. One of the signs for neurodivergent women is if we go to a house party, we're the one that's on the floor with the dog. We're not talking to the people. We're like, hi, puppy, you are the most important thing. We also have a super, super sensitive sense of empathy for animals and other human beings as well. Um, Yeah, so touching specific textures, petting dogs. That's why I have two giant floofy polar bears because I just get to pet them all day and it feels great. Time outside and sunlight, and then consuming strongly flavored or textured foods. So if you really like sour, or if you really like spicy, or if you like cold things, or if you like tea because it's sipping warm water, those are sensory seeking, pleasureful activities that can recharge that battery to prevent the battery from draining more than it has to, avoiding loud environments, especially when there's multiple conversations going on and we have to zone in and listen to one person. It can be very hard, especially if you are ADHD, to focus in on one because there's so much information coming in that your system is trying to process, where you're hearing all the different things, but you can't filter it to just the noise that you need to hear. Using noise canceling headphones, like when you go grocery shopping or if you're in public. I don't know if you've ever grocery shopped while listening to music in Costco, but it is a totally different experience than walking around Costco, not having anything and hearing all of that sensory stuff and the conversations and things like that. I love grocery shopping with AirPods in. Um, Discomfort with certain clothing textures or tags. This is one that I have always had trouble with. If things are too tight, or if like a sports bra strap digs in, or the socks that have like the stitching at the big toe. So when you step, you feel it rubbing on your toe. Those are all things that we need to be aware of wearing comfortable clothing. So as you can tell, I'm in a super comfy Lady the F Up shirt right now and super comfy shorts. I don't really like tight clothing unless it's super stretchy Lulu clothing that feels like a second skin, but I've never been one to wear jeans or like things that are cinched at the waist. If I can feel the texture and even just feel it like rubbing on my skin lightly, that's something that I'm consciously aware of ongoingly that's really, really aggravating and drains my battery because I have to try not to focus on it. Hearing electricity and minuscule noises doesn't really go into this category, but I was brain dumping. If you can hear electricity in the walls, or if you're in a car and you hear something like rattling where it's like da, 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 and no one else really hears it or pays attention to it, again, that is our heightened threat center trying to detect what's abnormal, what is something there. So not necessarily getting rid of that, but I'm the one in the car if like my water bottle is rattling against my keys, I'm like, that needs to be changed immediately because otherwise it's all I hear. And then on the opposite side of leaning into strongly flavored, textured foods that taste good, avoiding certain smells or tastes that are too overpowering for our system. So, like walking into a Hollister or an Abercrombie back in the day, where it's like, whew, that is a really strong smell, almost always gave me a headache. There's very limited candle smells that I can have burning because they're so overpowering. And then when it comes to taste, I love sour stuff. Don't like spicy. I'm a super plain picky, my foods don't really touch kind of person. So I avoid foods that I don't like. Common sensory challenges for ADHD adults. Now, keep in mind in neurodivergence, there is crossover in all of these, and you can be neurotypical and relate to some of these, but if you sound like all of them and you check all the boxes, it might be worth doing some internal deep dive discovery stuff. So we'll start in the top corner, struggles with transitions and changes, including difficulty adjusting to new environments or routines that involve different sensory stimuli. So a job change, for example, or moving, or being placed in a new office in your office environment, or with transitions like for me, going from coming home from the gym and having a meal, getting back into work, that is something that I really struggle with unless I have a call booked. And if I have a call booked, it's an appointment with a person that I show up for. And then once I'm in my work bubble, I can transition into the rest of the work. But going from one task to another, big struggle for me and just transitions in general. Also, just like environment. So 2 years ago, my dance facility switched locations, and I remember feeling like super nervous and nauseous, and I actually skipped the first two classes that were at the new location because it was unfamiliar to me, and it was just too much for my system. The next one is sensitivity to sensory stimuli, such as loud noises, bright lights, strong smells, can lead to overstimulation and emotional dysregulation. So talked about that a little bit. Sensory seeking stimulation such as fidgeting, tapping, constantly moving to regulate sensory input we process when we move. Difficulty filtering out irrelevant sensory information, leading to distractibility and difficulty focusing on tasks. So if you're in like an open office environment, that can be challenging to focus on tasks. That's not something I can do. If I'm not in here or if I don't have noise canceling headphones on, focusing on tasks is really, really hard. Trouble sleeping or relaxing because of overstimulation or sensitivity to specific environmental factors such as noise or light. When I was down in Texas, our hotel was next to a highway. Oh my God, I got the worst sleep ever because I sleep in country where like maybe there's a bird, but the sirens and the cars and like the people in the hotel room banging above completely disrupted my sleep. And if you're someone like that, or even if it's not like noises that disrupt you, if you're having sleep issues or you have trouble winding down at night, could potentially be a symptom of just a really overstimulated day, week, month, constant stimulation, especially if you're not aware of it. Challenges sustaining focus during tasks that require continuous mental effort, like studying, reading, or attending meetings. Sensitivity to sensory aspects of communication, such as struggling with background noise or visual stimuli during conversations, struggling with organization and planning, such as experiencing sensory overload while decision making or organizing information. So, a couple of different symptoms there. Getting into stimming. So, brought this up a little bit earlier, but more specific things that some people might not know are stimming. Stimming is a way of regulating our nervous system and moving as we process the information. Otherwise, it feels too much, and then we feel very anxious and overwhelmed. So forms of stimming can be across any type of neurodivergence, skin picking, biting your nails, or like I'll push my cuticles back with my fingernails. So in conversations, I'll be sitting and like picking or like ripping at my nails. I don't really bite it, but I do pick. Biting the inside of your cheek or biting your lips, fidgeting with any sort of jewelry. So I see this a lot where people have necklaces and they'll be playing with the pendant or they'll be like fidgeting with a charm on their bracelet. Eating when you are not hungry. Binge eating is a very, very common stim for neurodivergent people because we like chewing on things. We like that. Like a lot of times, I'm not hungry. I just want to chew on something, which is why I have chew stims. Um, Disliking or liking specific foods due to texture. I don't like mushy bananas. I don't like cooked oatmeal. Those are examples. I don't like ground meat. I don't like chicken breast. Just very texture sensitive stuff. Or if you can relate to like, have you ever had chicken that's too chickeny or like an egg that's too eggy? And if you're like, yeah, I've had that before, that's a similar sensitivity chewing on things. So I was the girl in school that like if I had two pigtails, I would chew on the end of my braid or I'd like chew on the end of a pen. I was always the chompy girl. In terms of vocal stimming, so echocolia, I think that's what it's called, but essentially repeating noises that you hear. So this was something that came to my attention literally 5 minutes before we started the call. I was out filling up my water bottle and my partner was playing a video game and one of the characters was like protect the fort or whatever and I mimicked it with like protect the fort. As soon as I heard it, I repeated the phrase unconscious to me, but that is a vocal stim. So repeating noises that you hear, singing, whistling, repeating phrases over and over, making repetitive noises. So sometimes when I'm sitting here, I'll be like just little things like that are vocal stims. Listening to the same song over and over and over again is also a form of stimming because it is predictability in our system. Playing with your hair, bouncing on your toes, shifting from side to side, rocking, tapping your feet, pacing back and forth, being very sensitive to clothing textures, not really stim. Again, I threw this together in info dumped. Clicking a pen, rapid blinking, and cracking your joints are all different types of stims. So now I want to get into just common traits or parts for ADHD versus autism versus just like neurodivergence as a blanket. Again, a lot of these are just like brain dump stuff. For ADHD, ADHD people crave excitement and stimulation. So they're looking to do things and keep their brain active, but it has to be something that they like. Oftentimes, this is impulsive. So they will act on an impulse. Ooh, I feel like getting a tattoo. Let's go get one. Or like, ooh, I really feel like having this snack. Let's go have it. That impulsivity, let's go on a last minute trip sort of thing because the brain craves novelty and new experiences. So seek new experiences, have a wide variety of interests. Sometimes those interests are very short-lived. I I thought I was going to get into drums, and I have an electronic drum kit in my spare room because I went through a hyper focus for about 2 weeks of being like, I'm going to be the coolest drummer ever because I saw a TikTok on it, and I haven't touched that drum set since. So one of the hyper focuses that came and went for me, but I was super into drumming for like 2 weeks. As an ADHD person as well, you can be excited by new environments. Whereas if you are autistic, you typically need structure and routine. Routine is not at 7 a.m. I do this, at 3 p.m. I do this, at 5 p.m. I do this. When I brush my teeth, I hold it with my right hand and I go in circles 6 times. It's like just doing the same things. Doesn't necessarily have to be in the same order, just that sense of predictability. Struggle with unexpected change. When things change and I do not know about it or it's a last minute change, oftentimes I will cry and I will have like a full blown meltdown and then I feel okay afterwards. But I really struggle with unexpected change. We don't want to overcommit to things. We want very minimal things on our schedule as autistic people. We crave rest and calmness. And then we have a strong passion for a few special interests. Sometimes a hyper focus will pop in, like the drumming, but for special interests, we pretty much lock in. And then we just want to learn more and more and more about that. Other common things for neurodivergent people is that we cannot identify our emotions. And this is something called alexithymia. So if someone says, "Are you okay?" I can say yes or I can say no. But if someone says, "How are you feeling?" I'm like, I don't know. I'm okay or I'm not okay. Cannot for the life of me name what an emotion is. I have started with somatic practices to be able to tell you, I feel a tightness in my chest. I feel heaviness. This could be, but that's been an ongoing practice for my entire life. I really, really struggled with being able to name specific emotions. The big one for pretty much all neurodivergent people is we prioritize context and being correct over emotions. So for us, information is priority over how someone is feeling because a lot of times we struggle with emotions. So we want the facts. Facts are more important than any sort of opinion that I had, and the opinion that I had previously was because of the facts that were presented. If you present me with new information, that tells me that what I thought previously was wrong. Cool, no hard feelings. I have taken that information into account. I have changed my perspective, and now I am correct because for us, it is important to be correct. And this is where we can be accused of making excuses from neurotypical people because we're just trying to provide context. We want you to understand what was going on, the environment, the situation, and what led us to make the decisions rather than the emotions that someone is feeling. And then on the flip side, if you get into a conflict with someone, but they provide enough context and you provide enough context, you're like, okay, cool, water under the bridge, kind of over it because the context was provided where neurotypical people may still be upset after the conflict because the emotions are still present. Other things, we love info dumping. I'm info dumping right now. It feels great. I'm super excited. I feel the activation in my system, but in a good way. Another one is not being able to hear the TV without subtitles. If you are a subtitles person, that could be that you need the visual stimuli plus the auditory to be able to focus on that specific thing because there could be someone in the kitchen, there could be noises outside, and it's harder to focus on just the audio of the show. Neurodivergents are more likely to struggle with all or nothing thinking. And when we are so hyper focused into a task, we forget that our body has needs, such as drinking water or eating or using the bathroom. I have held my urine for hours and hours while focusing on a task, even though it's like if you take a break and you go pee, it's going to be like 2 minutes and then you can come back to it. But that is struggling with the transitions. And when we're hyper focused on something, we're just locked in. It's like, da da da, complete it. I'll deal with taking care of my body after. So this is where something like hydration alarms or having snacks or water with you can be really helpful. Another thing is a lot of times we are klutzy and accident prone. This is due to something called dyspraxia. Dyspraxia just means like you aren't as aware of your surroundings and the feedback coming in is too much for your nervous system to be able to filter out. So if you're the person that like walks into walls or goes to move something and drops it, or like bangs their shin on the dishwasher. I did that an hour ago. Those can be related with neurodivergence and bruising easily because that's a collagen connected tissue thingy. Common comorbidities with neurodivergence, so coexisting conditions. If you are a neurodivergent person, this comes down to the autonomic nervous system. So that's the part of our nervous system that regulates all of the things we don't have to think about. Heart rate, blood pressure, digestion, excretion, precipitation, sweating, temperature regulation, pupil dilation, circulation, breathing, all the things we don't actually have to think about. When the neurodivergent nervous system is super highly sensitive, there can also be other conditions where the nervous system doesn't operate the way that neurotypicals do. It can be misdiagnosed or coexist with anxiety and depression. OCD is a common one with either ADHD or autism as well. Dyspraxia, so that general clumsiness. Dysautonomia. So dysautonomia just means your nervous system doesn't work the way that it should. Temperature fluctuations. So if you have cold hands or cold feet all the time, could be a sign of dysautonomia. If you get lightheaded when standing up, or if you just generally have low blood pressure. And then another one that I am super interested in is something called binocular vision. So there's this theory, and I'm very interested to learn more about it, where if you do have dyspraxia, this clumsiness of walking into walls and dropping things, it could be because your eyeballs, which should be working together, actually individually work and your brain tries to put the feedback together. So binocular vision means each eye works on its own. And there are glasses. So if you're someone who has glasses, there are binocular prescription lenses that you can get that apparently help correct this. Not all optometrists do it. I'm actually in the process of trying to find an optometrist in Ontario to get tested for binocular vision to see if that'll help me walk into walls less over time, because that's been something I've struggled with my entire life. Digestive issues. So constipation, slow gut motility, meaning our food moves through our digestive tract a lot slower than the other people, which can lead to constipation. And then we can also have tight junction cell separation at an increased rate compared to other people. So in your small intestine, you have this like brick-like wall where cracks can develop, and then undigested food particles can slip out of the digestive tract into the bloodstream, increase inflammation, and cause new food intolerances. We are more likely to experience tight junction cell separation because we have such a sensitive nervous system, and it is stress, physical stress, emotional stress, or mental stress that causes those tight junction cells to separate. This can also lead to autoimmune conditions later in life. Thyroid, digestive issues, IBD, celiac disease, you name it, that is all connected, as well as hypermobile joints. Hypermobility is not the same as flexibility. I have hypermobile internal rotation of my hips. Hold on, I'll stop sharing for a second. So what that looks like for me is I can go like this and fall down and lie back completely. If you were a W sitter as a kid, you probably have joint hypermobility. I can also touch my thumbs to my fingers, but I cannot do the splits. So it's not about being super bendy and super flexible. Sometimes you just have hypermobility in specific joints. POTS, this is a heart condition. It's like polyorthostatic tachycardia syndrome, something like that, but getting lightheaded, dizziness, fainting spells, exercise intolerance, mast cell activation syndrome. So that's when your body overproduces mast cells and you get lots and lots of allergy symptoms, exercise intolerance. So if you get like flush and super, super red and hot and itchy after workouts, that could be a sign. And then Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which I made a post about a while ago. How much more do we have? Um, you know what? I'm going to stop it there and I'll do a part three later. Does anyone have any questions? We got about 10 minutes. Or Deb, do you want to share stuff?
I was just laughing because I was a gymnast. I got sent out of the classroom all the time because I couldn't sit still. Um, I was always getting in trouble. I still get in trouble at HQ because I'm like it's like shiny things take my attention. But the thing that, when you were saying about the co things, like I've always had OCD, and what really bothers me is that people think OCD is turning a light on and off 30 times or tapping a wall like or before they go to bed or whatever. And it's like there's so many different versions of it, and it's just really nice to know that, well, when you've lived as long as I have, you weren't given the grace when you were younger. I was always told I was a problem. I'm too hyper. I need to calm down. My nickname growing up was Prony for being accident prone. How do you do back handsprings on a four-inch wide beam 6 feet in the air, but you walk into walls? And like honestly, my entire life I thought I was just this big fuck up. And then I would blame it, and I've always blamed a lot of my stuff on my trauma, because even the psychologist who worked with me early, like last year, said, we don't know, like maybe you developed ADHD because you were sexually abused, or maybe that's just the way but whatever it is, your brain wiring was changed, and maybe because you were so young. So it's just, it's very interesting about the food things and having a daughter as well. Like Carly, I have always said that you and Carly are the same. Like you even don't even probably realize you made a sound when you went to go down and do the thing, you went whoop, whoop, like, and
Yeah.
you do that at HQ when we're doing exercises and we're filming, you'll go whoop, and it's just really cute. Like it's just who you are, and I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. Anytime I make noises, especially getting up, I'm like, oh, and they're like, is it that hard to stand up? I'm like, no, this is just, it's what comes out of my mouth as I move my body.
But I think that you doing this training has been so good and so helpful that I actually helped one of our coaches that Um, I used to coach a woman, and when she wanted to come back, she made it very clear to Rima, Deborah is very, very smart. I don't want to work with her. Okay. And so she was with another coach. And this other coach was having the same issues that I was having with her. But the difference is, I said to this other coach, maybe she's on the spectrum. Maybe she's neurodivergent. We're hearing nastiness, rudeness, like the way she talks. Why would I do that? That's ridiculous. That's stupid. You guys need to reform your process. Like I go, like she says this out loud, and I said, but I think for her, she's just very. It's black, it's white, it's this, it's that. There's no gray. Here I go. Do do do. And I said, talk to her in her language, but with your sweetness,
Yeah.
and point out to her that she says she's not getting results, but then you need to point out to her you had 6 drinks over the course of 5 days, you ate ice cream. Don't like you She needs to see the connection. It's changed their relationship.
Context is so important for us to understand things. And that's where a lot of the women that I work with that have worked with coaches previously, where things just didn't work, it was like, huh, you need to understand exactly why we're doing this. Or if you say, hey, what's your thoughts on this exercise? I genuinely provide you with all of my thoughts on it, what the perks are, what could potentially go wrong in it. But we're so context driven
Hmm.
that it can come across as being super blunt or super direct when it's like, no, I have good feelings behind it and good intentions behind it. It just comes across as like, because we're just direct and literal.
But but you providing all this continuing education really for us, and this knowledge not only helps us understand ourselves better, like myself, like I love it. Like I think I look at myself now and go, man, I've got all these superpowers. I had to wait till I was 60 to figure them all out. But it's also helped the other coach. Like when I said that to the other coach, I go, maybe she's on the spectrum. You're not going to ask, but we're just hearing this rude woman who's biting you every week in her check-in, but talk to her in a way that she's hearing you. And so like thank you for that because it's really we all are different.
Yeah. And
I've never had a problem coaching somebody in person because like face to face when I've taught 300 students at one time, online though, if you don't know how to get the context right, people can misinterpret you. And so this has been life changing for me anyways. Thank you.
yeah. And it just gives us a better understanding of our systems. Like I've really only learned about this stuff the past year, 2 years. Like this has become one of my new hyper focuses because it impacted me for so long and I didn't know anything about it. Being like, I need to understand the context of why I do the things that I do and the way that I do, and then being able to apply that to other people even if they're not neurodivergent. It's like, huh, what is the context of this where your nervous system is acting in this way, where this is the outcome that it has repeated over and over again, where you feel broken, where it's like, no, it's not you being broken. It's just your system is trying to keep you safe with everything that is being thrown your way.
Yeah, and I think it's great that other people start to realize that how other people need to socialize. Like it's been very hard for me. It's not hard for me to make friends. It's hard for me to keep friends
Mm,
because I'm not a girls' weekend. Um, I don't love to go out. I hate parties. I like getting invited to something doesn't make me happy. It makes me anxious. Working all day one-on-one with people training and then all the other coaches around and all their energy, I'm done. Like,
yeah,
whereas other people get jazzed up by it. So it's good because if you're going to live in this world properly and really contribute, you have to know. Like you have to know what you're, and I don't ever feel guilty saying no. Like, everybody know my best friend is neurodivergent too. So
yeah. We have to set boundaries for our system, and that'll be part three because I always underestimate how long it's going to take me to go through the information that I dumped together, being like, I want to talk about all of this stuff. So, part three will be 2, maybe 3 weeks from now. But we'll get into like what people struggle with and what masking looks like and unmasking and that concept, especially for the people who are potentially undiagnosed right now or they're curious to learn more about neurodivergence and they're starting to tick some of the boxes being like, yeah, well, this kind of relates with me, but in public or when I'm around people, this is what I can accomplish because that's for a lot of us. Um, the undiagnosed people were very good at masking. And a lot of times we are unconsciously masking because we grew
yeah,
up just learning how to do that to fit in and be normal. Because when we were ourselves, we were either rejected or someone made a comment being like, you're weird or you're talking too much or you're too much. So we lessened who we were and be like, okay, how do I fit into this social situation without being rejected? We mask.
it's true. And I'll never forget being called into the principal's office again, even though I was a good student and my mom and dad had to come and get me. And the doctor said, like the doctor, sorry, the principal said to them, I'll never forget this. You either put her on Ritalin or take her home and give her a good spanking. But either way, this kid needs to like learn.
Yeesh.
She cannot do what she's doing in class. What was I doing in class? I was fidgeting. I was getting up. I was like moving. I was like sitting and I even find myself doing that in meetings, you
Yeah.
know? I just but I'll never forget that. I was like, can I have the Ritalin? I didn't even know what that was.
Yeah.
But can you imagine like that back then? That was the 70s. That's how we're going to deal with a kid. My mother was like, well, she's in gymnastics. I think we should put her into the competitive stream then. Then she goes 6 days a week. Okay.
Burn out all the energy when really you're like, yes, it gives me structure, but it doesn't change my brain.
No.
So, does anyone have any questions? We got about 2 minutes left. or things that they want to share, feel free to take yourself off mute. Would love to hear from you. No? Okay. That's totally fine by me. Next week, we have Mal coming on with our 2024 Lady of the Year, Lee. So they're going to be on, and Lee is going to be talking about navigating just when life is crazy and how to consistently show up for yourself when there's so many demands from life outside of focusing on this process. And Lee has been with us for quite some time. She's made an incredible transformation. She is almost 60, I believe, now.
Yeah, she's
Um,
59.
yeah.
Yeah, just turned
So,
it, I think, a bit. Because
yeah.
she always likes to point out that I'm older than she is. I wear
And
lipstick to the gym now because she does. Like she's always put together and she works so hard.
yeah, we love Lee. So
Oh,
definitely come join us next week for that. And then I think the week after, I will be back for part three. Awesome.
perfect.
Thanks for hanging out, ladies. Have a great night.
Thanks for the work, Lexi.
Bye.
Bye.